Great. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Danielle Coco. I am the marketing director at Susta. And I am joined by Jeff Boothby, who is our guest speaker from Woodsman Forestry out of North Carolina, Dina Erdy, who is from the Louisiana Department of Agriculture, Sarah Cook from the Georgia Department of Agriculture, and Teresa Brophy from the Maryland Department of Agriculture. And today we're going to discuss what to expect at the inbound trade missions that we have coming up in August for the wood species industry. And I really want to turn things over to Jeff to talk about. He is someone who has participated in our trade missions in the past, and he is going to explain kind of how it all works. But before we do that, I'll jump into just a few things about Susta. First, there we go. Susta is a regional trade association, and we work with small businesses in this region in the South to help them grow internationally and promote their agricultural products internationally. We're funded primarily by the USDA. Our programs include educational programs like webinars. Like today, we have an export readiness training, a helpline, a lot of things to help new exporters kind of get up to speed. We host a variety of global events, such as these trade missions that we have coming up. And we also have a 50% cost share program where you can get reimbursed half of certain international marketing expenses. So the trade missions that we're talking about today, we are bringing buyers from China, India, and Vietnam to Maryland, Georgia, and Louisiana in August. The whole reason for this webinar was some of the companies have never, that we were recruiting, have never participated in events like this. So we just wanted to bring in Jeff to, explain how it's all going to work and hopefully get some more folks on board. If you want to take a look at the events, you just go to our website, susta.org, and you go to the events page, and all three are listed here. It's chronological. You have to register for each one separately, which I know is kind of annoying. They're $8.33 each, so it's a $25 total event. It's just the way that we're funded. We're funded by country, so all of our events have to be laid out by country. So just to explain that, why that's a little annoying. But anyway, it's an incredibly affordable opportunity to meet buyers from all of these from these three different countries. And then you'll see all of our events here. Most of them, I will say, are for the food and beverage industry. But, wood is a new species that we can work with. Before, I guess, 2019-ish, wood was not under our purview. We were really working more with other, value-added food and other types of products. But now we can work with wood. So welcome. And then, I wanted to touch briefly on our cost share program. This is the one that I mentioned where you can get reimbursed half of certain international marketing expenses. Because it's a government program, it's not everything under the sun, but these are the main highlights of the things that we can reimburse. And I'll just talk about a few of them that seem to make sense for the wood companies that we've been working with. So if you want to exhibit at any of the international trade shows like Interzoom or Vietnam Wood, Dubai Wood, you can ask Susta for 50% reimbursement of your booth fees, travel for 2 employees or company representatives, your marketing materials. There's quite a few things that you can get reimbursed for. And then there is one show in the US in Orlando, the International Builders Show, that's considered international, even though it's domestic, and we can reimburse half of exhibiting at that show, just not your travel. It's one of our regulations. We can only reimburse travel that's international. There are also trade missions that take place outside of the US. So, the ones that we're bringing in, that's taking place domestically, but there are times when either Susta or AHEC, the American Hardwood Export Council, or USDA, they will organize trade missions outside of the US, and we can also reimburse half of those expenses. So the participation fee, the travel. and all of these other things. So, you're exhibiting at a show, you need point of sale material, maybe you're shipping samples and your marketing materials, your badge scanners. If you're making t-shirts or hiring people to work in your booth, you want to create little giveaway items that have your brand and your name on them. All of that is 50% reimbursable. Advertising, we've seen a few wood companies come in for some of these export directories or other, international publications, whether they're digital or traditional. So 50% reimbursement of those, as long as they're targeting a foreign market. Translating your website. So either translating it, on your US website, or if you create a foreign URL, the costs to do the actual translation, as well as the web development and tech development expenses, are 50% reimbursable. So for anybody who doesn't have a My Susta account, that is going to be your first step. You go to our website, you click the little sign up at the top right, and then you go through and give us basic information so that we can determine your eligibility. We work with small businesses in the South who have US products. It's kind of the main eligibility. And then just make sure you let us know if you're interested in our global events program and or our 50% cost share program, because that's how you're reviewed. And then one thing, when you create your account, we do ask for your harmonized system code, your HS code, and we ask that you drill down to a 6-digit. So the wood and articles of wood is 44. So you check that off and it would open up all these 4-digit options, and you check one of those and then you can get to a 6-digit option. So if you have problems with that, just give me a call, but that should be pretty self-explanatory. And then with the other code that we ask for when you create your account is your NAICS code. And if you start typing in either Sawmill, it's a find as you type. So you can either start typing in the number if you know the number, or you can start typing in words and it'll pull up the words that match. So hopefully that is pretty self-explanatory as well. But again, this is my contact information. If you have any questions about that process or anything else with Susta, I would love to hear from you. And with that, I am going to turn it over to our expert on the trade missions, Jeff.
Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah.
It's funny to be called an expert on this as one of the new guys, but that's all right. I like it. So my name is Jeff Boothby. I'm a professional forester here in North Carolina. I own Woodsman Forestry PLLC. I started the company in 2010, and we do two different things. We have a timber wealth management division that manages private timberland in 4 states: Carolinas, Southern Virginia, and Eastern Tennessee. And then we also have our exports and industrial division, which is why we're here today. So our exports and industrial really began in 2012 with a tri-state export seminar that was hosted down in New Bern. And there weren't any, I personally didn't run into any specific opportunities to really go into, didn't know about Susta at the time until 2018. And there was I believe it was a Susta affiliated, but a NCDA, North Carolina Department of Agriculture, inbound trade mission with some Chinese buyers. And that was really our first taste of realistic requests for our products. I work with a number of wood yards and some other facilities who were interested in exporting, but didn't know enough about it, didn't know how to get in touch with buyers. Really, the idea was there, but that's all it was. And so with these contacts that I made through Susta, we were able to start narrowing in on some of the realistic opportunities we faced. With these trade missions, the really neat thing is, regardless of where you're located, I mean, I'm in Wadesboro, North Carolina. There's less than 5,000 people in this town. And I've had over 3 dozen different buyers from foreign countries come here to seek doing business with us. So these Susta opportunities are amazing, and you'll find a wide spectrum of buyers. Some will come in and want something very specific. Others are going to come in and want a range of products just to see whatever they can make fit into their numbers. You will have some that are very experienced. You'll also have some that are brand new, just like you are to exporting. And with that, you also run into varying expectations of what those potential buyers expect as well. I would say this: if you're not a sawmill that knows exactly what you're going to sell it for and exactly how much your freight's going to be for your exports, and you are lined up to and ready to export, don't expect to have a deal closed with one of these meetings. However, you are making the connections to be able to close those deals. My standard practice is I make sure I get everybody's contact information. They're going to give you business cards. They're going to give you phone numbers, email addresses, all the normal business contact information. And your best bet, contact them the same day, the next day. Don't look overzealous, but make sure you reach out to these people, because you're meeting them, you're establishing that relationship, and doing business with people on the other side of the planet is all about relationships and living up to what you say you can do. So you want to build that relationship, and you've got a great leg up on where a lot of my leads come from random phone calls or random emails of people I've never met. So to actually have sat face to face with someone or representatives from the same company and establish a relationship and can read the body language on what they're actually looking for and what they're saying, that makes a huge difference. So networking becomes a big part of this. Additionally, with that, networking becomes brand recognition. And that is something I found incredible with what Susta and NCDA were able to do for my company, Woodsman Forestry, is now I have people from all over the world calling and asking for Woodsman. And a lot of that recognition came from Susta events like this, where key individuals were a part of that trip. And because we met and I followed up with them and showed a genuine interest in doing business, even if it may not have come around right away, if they don't have it or it doesn't quite work with them, they certainly know someone. I mean, especially when we look at Southeast Asia, there's several billion people that we're talking about doing business with between India, the rest of Southeast Asia, Vietnam, and China. So there are limitless possibilities. And as we all know, we grow sustainable wood around here and more than what we can use domestically. And that is not the case in most of these countries. Plenty of them have a bunch of wood, but it's mostly firewood and things like that. It's not the merchantable quality timber that we grow here in the United States. What I recommend to anyone who's doing this, you need to have something for them to take back with them. Pins, shirts, hats, at least a business card, but everybody has a business card. You need something for them to be proud to show off in their office so that they never forget the name of your company. And for us, we usually had some brochures. We show some videos of things that we do. A cheap projector these days and a smartphone, and you can do about anything in that regard. So we made our meeting very enjoyable with the visuals there on our presentation point. We had notepads and brochures and things like that to give to them, to take back with them. And then also, I have a smaller community here, but it's the same in every community. Economic development, if you're a member of Chamber of Commerce, all of these local organizations are also looking for your business to grow. And so here I partnered with our economic development and our Chamber of Commerce. And we, because we had the time in the schedule, we went to a nice little local restaurant around the corner and were able to give them some, heavy hors d'oeuvres and drinks and things. And so after we talked business, we went and gave them some Southern hospitality, let them really understand what doing business in America is about, oftentimes, where it's not just about the numbers most of the time. That's the most important part, obviously. We send wood, you send money, and all the money in that. But at the same time, it's about enjoying doing business. And when they talk to potentially hundreds of people around the world and dozens of people in the United States, you want to make sure that you're the company that they remember that was a great time to be around. Because ultimately, numbers are going to dictate whether you do business or not. But if it's close with a competitor, maybe not even someone maybe someone in a completely different state. But if it's a close running with a competitor, if you are the company that they love doing business with already, more than likely you're going to get that business. And that comes down to the relationship side of this. And so that's one thing I really encourage. Have some stuff for them, have a presentation, know basically what, if you can tell them what your FOB at your facility price is for various products, then the rest becomes pretty simple, right? They're going to be very, very tenacious on trying to lock you in on details of a sale. I would strongly encourage you not to agree to anything in particular at one of these meetings unless you're ready to export immediately. Simply because, let's look at the price of diesel fuel, bless you. Look at the price of diesel fuel here over the past 6 months. Trucking rates have exploded because of this. And when I look at what my cost to export was 6 months ago versus what my cost to export is now, it's not the same. It's significantly more expensive. Now, is it unreasonable for all markets? No, but it certainly will make certain markets not work. And what you don't want to do is to have something in writing that will hold up in a U.S. court for your side of it. And now you're stuck having to sell something at a loss, right? We can all sit at home and go broke. So we really want to make sure that you don't promise anything other than you want to do business with them if you can. If you do not have a freight forwarder, you really need to get in touch with some freight forwarders that have a presence in the country you're working with. My company and with my clients, because we're not huge companies, the big industry corporations, they pay dozens of people to handle this stuff. They have multi-million-dollar budgets to do this. But your average mom and pop, even a rather large sawmill, it's just not feasible to have that sort of staff on hand. And so you really want to make sure that the terms are what you can do. We know freight forwarders, honestly, we are not interested in sending wood halfway across the world only to be paid 60, 90 days after it arrives. All the risk is left on you. There are ways that can be done. And I can't remember the name of there's a federal insurance that you can get for exporting. And there's also the Dan Holt is an amazing resource who can send you to someone locally for any details of quoting these things with your pro forma invoices, all the steps you need to know. But us personally, because we're gonna, on any sizable order, we're gonna have several $100,000 a month. We mostly export roundwood logs, so we're gonna have several $100,000 of cost anyways. We don't want to double that cost with our ocean freight. So for us, our hard point is we're going to deliver to the port, and that's where we're going to be paid from on a timely manner. So when you look at how that's structured, we only have 2 weeks potentially. If it's back-to-back shipments, we only have 2 weeks of potential loss in any particular customer, because not everybody's created equal, and not all countries are going to hold them to the standards that America holds us to, which is risk, but business is risk. You mitigate that risk, and when you start talking to these folks and you hear about the size of the orders that they are asking for, you won't be able to fill all of it. So there is a huge amount of economic opportunity that will drive the usefulness of this risk. And depending on what your product may be, if you're selling lumber or a finished product or semi-finished product, that is a little bit different than if you're selling more of a raw commodity. For us, we're usually raw commodities, roundwood logs, wood chips, things of that nature that are more of the commodity rather than, a $30,000-$40,000 container of white oak lumber, right? So that also dictates how this works. And what I have found, to kind of sum up what I'm saying on that aspect, is most of these companies will come in rather hard-lined on what their payment terms they want are. That's a request, right? You need to know what you're comfortable with and how far you're willing to go, what your budgets will allow you to do, what your risk mitigation is going to be there, and have a hard line of where you won't go past. Because if they truly want to do business with you, and they do, if they're coming here, they want to do business with you, then they will adjust. As every business deal is a little bit of a negotiation, it'll be the same here. And because there are a lot more moving parts, then it will certainly be a little bit more negotiating. And some of these deals will come together rather quickly. Some of them may take months to come together. For us, I've found the smaller deals often come together quickly. The ones that we're looking for, the medium to large size deals, where we're looking at, a minimum of 50 containers a month of logs, or sending out entire bulk loads of chips, where we're bringing certain chip facilities back online at the ports here in North Carolina. Those take months to develop. Whereas a guy that wants 10 containers, you might talk to him in a week, and if you have all your ducks in a row, you can go ahead and close that deal, and you're ready to ship as soon as the shipment comes. Something else, getting to that shipment side of things. We've all heard, or you will hear if you haven't yet, of the out of our control problems that we face at the ports. There's a lot of ship delays, there's equipment shortages. So anytime you are looking to do some exporting, you need to make sure that you at least have a general idea of what's going on at the ports you plan to export through. For us, we use the Dillon Rail Depot that uses the Charleston, gives you direct access there. At times we ran into equipment shortages, significant equipment shortages, where we may have had 15 or 20 containers or more in a single shipment, and they had 2. So serious challenges can come up. You'll work through all these things. And I don't say this to discourage you, but more to give you realistic expectations on what sort of things you need to work through. And if you have a strong trucking component to your company now, then you are a leg up on everyone, especially if your drivers can't already have or can get TWIC cards, which is TWIC. I don't know what that stands for, but it's what you have to access a U.S. port facility without a guide, right? I don't have a TWIC, but when I get a port tour, I'm with the guys who have already done their background checks for all of my team, and we're able to go on the port. Otherwise, you're not allowed on the port. So if you already have a trucking company that you're working with, or your own trucks, you are a leg up above most folks. And with that, your truckers are going to be a big part of your solution to equipment shortages, right? Because they'll either know somebody who has chassis, or they have some chassis themselves, or they'll have a line in somewhere, that it's the team in this that really makes the project come together. And so you want to make sure that even if you have your facility and your product is just A+, everything is perfect, it's all squared away at your facility, you also need to make sure that the other components of this, that you're already working on these pieces, even if you aren't actually exporting yet. And what we found, trucking and port equipment were our limiting factors, so those are kind of some big things. I really think you're going to enjoy these meetings. I do. I certainly did. My whole team did. Our clients did. These wood yards that we work with. And I mean, I have pictures that I save in my favorites, and I send to some of these people every now and again, just to remind them who I was, what we did around here. So that you're going to love it. Trust me. Even if it doesn't turn out to business right away, you're going to have a great time. You'll be glad that you brought these folks to your facility. You're going to learn a lot. You'll see a lot of India has very different way of doing business than China. Vietnam has a different way of doing business than China and India. The markets are a little different between them. Vietnam is an intermediary market to get to China, right? It was one of these tariff go-arounds. And so when you have a middleman, prices are going to reflect such. So you'll find Vietnam will be a little lower prices, but some great opportunities there. China is by far one of the strongest markets. Phytosanitary is sometimes one of the challenges there. For us, we make sure that they pay us when it leaves the US. So it's a Chinese company's responsibility to deal with Chinese government if customs regulations change, like they have in the past 6 months. And so if you're doing it as an American company, I hope you know a congressman or something that has some sway over there, because that's about all you have. So there's those things. The Indian market. Let me say something about the Indian market. What an amazing market. Such a huge demand, pretty good prices, especially if you get in with a company that is reputable from over there. Phytosanitary can be a challenge. Here in North Carolina, fumigation is the issue, right? And many of the, I know Louisiana and Georgia, not such an issue as it is here. It's more capacity of those fumigation facilities rather than the ability to fumigate on that state's soil. I really can't speak to Maryland because I don't know enough about it, unfortunately. I wish I did. But India is a great market. They will buy some stuff. Like I had guys wanting to buy slabs cut off of cans, and so we could send them a container of slabs, right? So they are willing to buy most anything. But there are some challenges to be in compliance with their fumigation or heat treatment. You have one or the other. There's no debarking. And now in China, bark removal is not an approved practice either. So that's got a little bit of a change there, but some awesome opportunities. Let's see. Touched on pricing, we touched on logistics and freight forwarders, and being particular on how far you're willing to go in a business deal to protect your risk and mitigate that. Danielle, is there anything else in particular you'd like me to touch on?
I don't think so. You've done a great job of kind of covering, from the beginning and the basics. We could see if anybody has questions. I did see one question come into the Q&A, and you may have sort of answered it already, but it says, I'm not an experienced exporter. What are the basics to begin doing business? I want to deliver logs to an area and then have the buyer take it from there. Is that realistic?
Yes, absolutely. So the initial part on this is going to be determining what their specs are, right? Everybody's going to have different specs depending on what the end use is. So you want to make sure you're very clear on the specs. I always send them some pictures or video of the logs that we have so that they can take a look and do it high quality. Don't take some teenager photo that you can't see anything or some selfie right there. You want to be able so they can see the wood quality. You want to show them the pile, make sure it's in focus. You want to show them the rings on it so they can see that, hey, even if it's not the tightest grain, it's uniform because it's grown here in the US. So you want to show them the quality of what you have so it gets them a little excited. You got to remember, they're buying stuff from around the world. What the stories I hear, these people are buying stuff from Siberia. One big beautiful logs. The next one, it's pencils, right? They have no consistency. They have no reliability. It's seasonal. It deals with geopolitics all the time. So you want to show them that you have a high quality, dependable, reliable, consistent source of whatever it is you're selling. So getting the specs is number one. Number two is making sure that they understand where you're willing to go. Hey, what are some ports that you are willing to ship from, right? Most of that's going to be geographically decided. It's going to be whatever's closest. For us, it was, we're 70 miles basically from the Dillon Rail Depot and the Greensboro Rail Depot. Can't get anybody on the phone at the Greensboro Rail Depot, so we don't send to Virginia, right? It goes down to Charleston instead because it's just the way it worked. So you need to figure that out as well. If they are experienced at importing products for their company, then they'll already be able to tell you about where they're going to send it. You need to know what your price is and make sure too, your price, you need to have some changes in cost built into this. Don't be afraid to add a first world amount of profit into this because there are going to be costs you do not expect. You're going to have trucking that's going to go up. And so step one, get the specs, figure out where it's going. Step two is going to be your pro forma. I encourage you to reach out to Dan Holt. He can give you some templates on a pro forma invoice, but a pro forma it needs to have several things on it, including, what it is you're selling them specific to them with the specs and all that kind of stuff, the quantity over time for this order, how long this order is valid for. If it's only a 30-day price, you need to make sure it says very clearly, this is a 30-day price, and do not give them a price that does not expire. You need to have a price that expires for several reasons. I don't need to go into it at the moment, but without a price that expires, you're leaving yourself open to some problems in the long-term business. You also need to make sure that you break out the cost as line items, right? I've got the cost of my logs I'm selling, but then I've got my trucking cost here. If I have a phytosanitary cost, I'm going to throw that in there. Here in North Carolina, it's $104, right? So I've got my $104, and I'm going to put in right there as it. If you can get a trucking company to give you a flat rate, that's a lot better than something with a fuel service charge. And if they have all the normal trucking quotes, make sure you ask that person, the broker or owner, whoever you're getting your rate for, make sure you tell them, look, that all sounds great. What's it going to cost me, right? Because you don't want to be thinking that it's going to cost $1,100 and it's actually $1,700 when you figure out all these other, not hidden fees, but less obvious fees in the trucking industry. So make sure you have that lined up. And I suggest, if you're going to do anything other than FOB at the port or some other Incoterms, right? There's a lot of Incoterms. You need to make sure your Incoterms are right. There's a glossary you can get that will tell you exactly what it is. FOB is the most common that we hear if you're selling it for freight on board, is what that stands for. But you're going to have a lot of people that want CIF, destination port. That's cost, insurance, freight, destination port. Everything is on you. You don't want that if you're exporting logs. I can tell you that right now. So you want to have FOB, port of origin, or rail depot that's going to that port of origin. So we've got our specs and our port we're going to, our pro forma invoice. Once that pro forma is signed, then now you're going to go into actually performing this. You'll get a booking that if you're doing FOB port of origin, then you're going to get a booking from your client. It's going to give you the booking number, your I don't have it in front of me. There's another code that you're going to have, especially if there's any rail involved or anything like that. There'll be these other codes that go along with it. You'll have your phytosanitary information that will go along with this. And so at your log yard, before you can start exporting, you'll get your phytosanitary certificate with your, here it's NCDA that administers that for USDA, but you'll do your inspection and do all that. Once it's approved, start loading your containers. If you are, most of them are going to require a scaling. A lot of them use JAS. There's actually a app called Tim Beater. It's like timber, but Tim Beater, TIMBETER. An Estonian company created this, and it uses AI where you can take pictures of your logs in the container, and it will scale them for you. A little bit of nuances here and there. Very simple, very quick. That's what we use. There's a yearly fee for it if you really are serious with this customer. Well worth it. And more importantly, now you will, instead of just having one photo for your documentation and chain of custody stuff, you will have three: the rear rack, the front rack, and the door, one door closed with the number of the container on it, right? So these types of things are great. Makes record keeping very simple, makes invoicing very simple. So you'll get your booking. When you're allowed to start delivering, don't deliver too early. If they shift the date, you're going to get fees. So you want to be delivering on the first day that you're allowed to start delivering, if that works. If it's a small order, put it somewhere in the middle. So if they change the date, it works. Don't get too much equipment out beforehand. Don't set yourself up for uncontrollable issues to add costs that you didn't expect. So you're going to start delivering those containers to the port, and depending on how your invoicing is lined up with them, for us, when we've sent our last container for this shipment, I summarize it all. They get a list, basically a packing invoice that will have every container, the weights, the volumes, all the information they needed that goes on in one sheet. They're going to have, we have rail billing. So we had rail billing with everything out of the Charleston, out of the Dillon Rail Depot. So you had rail billing information that was daily that we sent in to them. And then you have your invoice. And so there'll be various documents they'll request. If you don't have Adobe DC, I suggest you get Adobe DC so you can create a single PDF document that has all of your pieces of information that you need. Simple. You save it as that booking number and the week and all that kind of stuff, whatever your digital database management record filing is, right? And you send it over to them, and if they pay you in the timely manner, then you send them some more wood on the next order, right? If they don't, then you start talking to them and be polite as you can, and then you have to call your attorney. If you are going to have a more complete contract, you need to make sure that it is drawn up by an international attorney in your area, and that the arbitration court will be in your jurisdiction. You don't want to pay somebody to go somewhere else. You don't want to travel yourself. You don't have to go to some other country. Now, some countries honor U.S. contracts more so than others, but nonetheless, you need to stack the cards in your favor. So those are just some little things. So we're going to figure out what the specs are, what port they want it to go to. We're going to send them a pro forma invoice. Once that invoice is signed, they're going to get ready to do the shipment. You're going to get a booking number for that shipment. You're going to get, before you can start sending those out by law, you will get your phytosanitary inspection done by your USDA inspector. Once that's done, you can start loading it, send it to the port. After your last delivery is made to the port, you'll summarize all of your data for your customer, send them the invoice, and wait to be paid. But communication is key through all of this, especially on the first few shipments. If you can get videos for them, if you can talk to them, send them text messages and email, just let them know what's going on. I usually, even with our ongoing customers, I say, hey, we're sending out the first container for booking number such and such. Oh, hey, thanks, Jeff. Great. Good to know. I'll let our logistics lady know, right? So there's these things. When we get the last one, if we run into container issues, I'll go ahead and let them know, especially if you're not doing the ocean booking, you can't talk to the ocean carrier. So your customer needs to be aware of equipment issues early on. If they say, well, we've only got like 3 containers and you've got an order of 20, I don't know what you're going to do. Well, if you've got a 10-day window, a 5-day window, a 4-day window, whatever your delivery window is, you need to make sure as soon as possible you let your customer know, so then they can call the ocean carrier and say, where are our containers? Where's our equipment? Sometimes it works. Sometimes you got a smaller order than what you expected, but usually it'll balance out over time. And outside of the post-lockdown just craziness in the shipping industry that is starting to get better already. It's really, you'll figure out what the ins and outs of are the port that you're working with. I mean, there'll be certain ocean carriers that do better at that port than others. You'll find as you do this, there'll be certain ocean carriers, you just tell customers, I don't work with them, right? We have 2 of them that we're just not interested in working with them because of what they did to our customers, right? And now they're former customers because it was such a terrible experience on their part, and an expensive learning lesson on their part too. So you want to make sure that you are very clear on what you have, what you're selling it for, and all of the costs. No hidden cost. You're not going to get that money back. So any cost that you're going to expect, that you're going to incur, make sure you outline that very clearly, how you're getting paid and when. And then the rest generally falls into place. If you have no trucking, the first thing I suggest you do is start figuring out what trucking company you're going to use. When I got into this in 2018, I talked to like 15 different trucking companies. We ended up going, I mean, I'm in forestry. We deal with trucks every day. So I ended up going with a friend within my network who was an owner-operator group, and we had a group of owner-operators that picked up the mantle and did a great job. So that was one of the keys to our success early on. But most importantly, it's just finding a more than one trucking company, but find the trucking company you want to work with. Talk to a bunch of them. Talk like you're putting a roof on your house, right? They want your business. They're a little bit more able to negotiate now than what they used to because of the trucking shortage, but they want your business if they need any sort of business at all. So that doesn't mean you can change their rates, but you're calling them to make them money. So don't give in to the first one. You may find the first one is the best option. We found one of them was trying to brag to us that they were going to pay somebody $60,000 to sit at our log yard and manage the trucks. Like that was a good thing. And we immediately were like, you're charging us an extra $60,000 a year. We don't need to pay someone. So, you know, there's all kinds of stuff you're going to hear. Shop around. But make sure you have your trucking lined up because that right now that's the biggest challenge, port equipment and trucking. And if you're only moving a handful of containers, less than 10 a month, shouldn't be a problem. If you're trying to move 50 to 100 containers a month, our goal was 250 containers a month. We found with equipment, we were looking at somewhere between 25 to 60 is all we could really manage going out of a single rail depot. So, you want to make sure that you're realistic and that you have your trucking lined up. So I guess that answered it. I'm a little long-winded sometimes. I apologize, but I like to cover all the details because there's a lot of moving parts in this.
Yeah, no, it's helpful. Who is Dan Holt?
So Dan Holt is with the Small Business Administration, and he is an export specialist. Let's see. I can email you his contact information, and that way you can spread it out to folks. And I would say if, he's towards retirement age, so if you got questions, go ahead and talk to him, because like Susan Kostelecki, she retired here recently from USDA. She was like the go-to guru for the Carolinas and Southern Virginia. Now there's just an interim. So for new questions, there's really no one authoritative to ask, right? So Dan Holt is an amazing asset. I met him through some of the NCDA export seminars that they put on every year, and he's always one of their speakers. And especially as we branched out of our original Chinese market and started going to some other countries around the world where it can be a little challenging just figuring out cultures and business atmospheres and stuff like that. Having him as a mentor, as well as, hey, here's my pro forma. We take a quick look at it. Am I missing anything? He's great for that kind of stuff, and really took my company's bidding side of the business to the next level. We were a little rudimentary before this, being that, we're kind of new to exports. And after working with him, folks are complimenting us because we give them more information than others are, evidently. So, which helps them. This is a lot of numbers you have to play with here.
Sure. Yep. Okay, great. Yes, if you could share his info, that would be helpful. And then last question, kind of a follow-up to the first one. It's if somebody just wants to deliver logs to a location and get paid, is that realistic?
Are they wanting to just sell logs domestically, or are they wanting to deliver to that other country?
I am gonna try to unmute Buck, so maybe he could. Hey, Buck.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Very good. Jeff, thank you very much for the very informative presentation. We don't have a lot of experience in exporting logs, and when we have tried to do that, people that have done it have really got burned. When we talk with our folks, they say, sure, we don't mind sending logs to a collection point. We'll get paid for what we bring to that collection point, and then let the exporter take it from there. Is that a realistic thing to do?
It can be in some areas. And really that comes to the niche markets. I call export yards niche markets simply because, sawmill, pulpwood mill, OSB facility, veneer mill, something like that, that's domestic producer. And that's our standard day in, day out markets. These export markets, when they are there, can be very lucrative. Here, there are, I believe currently there are 2 at the ports in North Carolina. There's one that's right across the street from Wilmington port, and he does containerized logs, and he does buy from domestic suppliers. And then there is another guy that does bulk shipments where it's a whole bulk cargo load, which these are 40,000 metric ton minimums on the bulk side of things. And I never had him reach out to any of us, so I know he procures locally, but I don't know enough about his supply there. So you may find that near you there are some exporting yards that need more capacity than what they have. So that is certainly an opportunity when it's available. For us, unfortunately, that wasn't the case. We were a little too far away from Wilmington to be able to do that and we're like 250 miles from Charleston proper. So for us, it was, if we were going to export, then we would have to containerize the logs at our woodyard facility there near the Pinehurst area and have that 70-mile haul down to the Dillon Rail Depot. So if there are export yards in your area, then I would very much encourage you to reach out to them and just see. They're all, most of them are willing to talk at least generalities, and if you have what they're looking for, then they'll talk details with you. They'll even talk delivered prices. And depending on what sort of quantity and the specs of the logs they're buying, you may find that it is significantly higher than the domestic market. If you're in an area that does not have a very strong domestic marketplace with the wood products facilities, they're probably going to price based on that, right? So it may still be a little bit more, but it may be that they're paying at or a little less than what it is, but they're willing to buy all you have. So the specifics of that particular opportunity would be a business by business sort of a situation. But if they are there and within a realistic trucking distance from your operation, then I encourage you very much to reach out to them. I mean, I know when we were, before China was shut off with the debarking of logs, right? So that happened August of last year, August-November timeframe is when that came into effect. We were struggling to get enough logs for our shipments right until the end when we had a surplus of it. So it may not be that they need something all the time, but if you have logs and you're in the wood business, you understand wet weather, right? Wet weather logging comes in and you've got a supply and they do not, they'll probably pay you a premium just like the sawmills in the area might. But I'm not sure where you're located, not sure what's around you. But there are definitely, if you're in Georgia, there's port facilities for sure. Don't know enough about Maryland and Louisiana to give you specifics, but good chance there's already somebody doing this that you could help supply.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Thank you, Jeff. I don't see any other questions coming in. And I think you really covered the bases. It would be great to get Dan's contact info that I could share with everybody. And I'll also circulate the recording of today's webinar, as well as the presentation that I gave, just in case anybody has follow-up questions. And yes, thank you all for joining us, and especially a big thanks to Jeff for sharing all of that knowledge.
Does that show up?
Dan, it does. Oh, it's a little fuzzy though. If you email it to me, I'll email it to everybody.
Yeah. Easy enough.
Perfect.
I'll do that when we get done here. Yeah. If you have any interest in doing something with exports, I encourage you to talk to Dan Holt. Keep in touch with your Susta reps. Make sure you talk to your local reps because your state will have through the Department of Agriculture an export division. And those folks will have daily leads or weekly, monthly leads at least coming in.
Yeah.
So make sure you talk to the folks that our tax dollars are paying. I mean, you see them here with their smiling faces. They're going to do great things to bring you buyers, get you in touch with these folks. You're there at the federal level. There are also some other agencies at the federal level, but your state and local folks, especially the state, are also a great resource. So I hope everyone will have some great success in exporting and make a lot of money doing it, help our local economies, and sell the world more sustainable U.S. forest products.
Yeah. Amen to that. Thanks so much, Jeff. And I look forward to being in touch with everybody later on today, and have a great Wednesday.
Thank you, Jeff. Bye.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.